Welcome to this contribution to Puppetize livestream. We are going to talk about data in modules. I am Alessandro Franceschi. I've been using Puppet for quite a long time. I'm CTO at Example42. I wrote several modules in the past, and currently I'm mostly working on Tiny Puppet and Psych. Psych is a Puppet module and a control repo which allows a quick setup of a full feature Puppet infrastructure. What we are going to talk and discuss here is also reported in the tip of the week 16 from the blog post of Example42. Where we talk about Hiera 5. So, what's data modules? By data modules, we refer to the possibility of setting the default values of the parameters of the classes of our modules inside the modules themselves as Hiera data. We can consider this as a sort of a replacement for the params pattern, which has been widely popular, mostly in the past, where in modules we had a params pp class where we could set the values of different variables according to different operating systems or other effects. Then these values are used as default values for the parameters of the classes of the module. So, for example, in this Apache module, the Apache name parameter of the Apache class comes from Apache params Apache name variable. Now, all these can be replaced, and actually in a much more elegant way, with Hiera 5 and the introduction of data modules in its definitive and final shape. Hiera 5 has been introduced in Puppet 4.9. So, starting from this version of Puppet, we can start to use modules which feature data module. What are the main new things which come with Hiera 5? Well, first of all, now we have 3 layers where Hiera looks for data, and these layers are configured by 3 different Hiera.yaml configuration files. There is the global one, which actually matches the previously existing one, which is configured by etc puppet labs puppet Hiera.yaml. In Hiera, we can define hierarchies which are defined and are working for all globally. Then we have an environment layer, where we have an Hiera YAML inside the environment, so basically an Hiera.yaml file which stays in our control repo. And finally, we can have also a Hiera.yaml file inside a module, so basically define there a hierarchy to manage the module's values, the defaults at least, values for the module's class parameters. Hiera 5 comes with a new format. This format allows much more flexibility and power in defining what hierarchy you want to use, what backends, and how to organize them. This is a sample output. We define some defaults. We define a data directory where we want our data to be placed if the underlying backend expects some files on a file system. In this case, we are using YAML backend as a source, and we define the hierarchies with the various parts of the files where to look for relevant to the data directory. For some levels, we can also customize and override the defaults, so we can also have in some levels a different backend, in this case Hiera YAML, with the relevant configurations. This same format of file can be used both inside an environment, like in this case. In this case, we have a Hiera.yaml file, which defines as data dir the directory called data inside a module called Hiera data, which is shipped separately in a dedicated repository. But if we prefer to have our Hiera data inside our control repo, we may define data or Hiera data or whatever else as a data directory, and then our own hierarchies according to whatever logic can be used to express the topology of our infrastructure. The same syntax is usable also inside modules. So, for example, this is the Puppet Labs NTP module, and here we have a Hiera.yaml inside the module, which defines the data dir inside the module, the backend to use. Of course, in this case, it makes sense to use not an encryption backend, and the hierarchies we want to use for looking up the default values for the parameters of the modules. So, inside the data directory of this module, the Puppet Labs NTP1, we can have different files from operating system specific to common one, which are built together by Hiera to retrieve and return the default values we want to assign to all the parameters of our class. Some other features are coming with Hiera 5. First of all, we have to consider that now in order to look up for data from within our Puppet code, besides the automatic lookup of class parameters, which is done for each parameter of a class by looking for a hierarchy, which is called with the class name and the parameter name. Besides this, we can also use the lookup functions to look for explicitly defined hierarchies. And these lookup functions basically replaces the legacy Hiera underscore hash and Hiera underscore array functions. Similarly, we can also use the puppet lookup command. So, for example, from the command line, we can use puppet lookup, specify the node for which to look up data, and the key to look up on Hiera. In this case, I'm going to do this on a puppet server, and the key returned in a hash of classes to include, but whatever is however is used this key, we can also use the --explain parameter to have the full visibility of what puppet lookup has done in order to retrieve the data which we wanted to look for. One important thing to consider here is that we can customize also the kind of lookup to do for each parameter of our classes. By using the lookup options key in the data of a module, this is the common YAML file of a module called psic, we can configure for each parameter we want to customize of our module the lookup method to use. For example, with this syntax, we are saying that for the settings parameter of the psic class, which actually is expected to have an hash, we want to do a deep merge lookup for the values of this hash, which means that the values are found, all the values found across the hierarchies are returned and merged together. By default, the lookup done by Hiera for the class parameters returns only the first value found across the hierarchies. Under this lookup options special key in our module data, we can also use wildcards. So, for example, we can say in a situation like this that all the parameters which end with the underscore hash in any class of the psic module have as a merge strategy, a deep merge strategy. And actually this is what happens when we use the explain parameter on our puppet lookup command. First, puppet lookup looks for the lookup options in order to understand what kind of lookup to do. And then, once it resolves the lookup options by using the found options, it looks for the actual key we want to look on Hiera. And it looks for this key, first looking in the global data provider, then in the environment, and then inside the module. The final result is then returned to the user. Migration to Hiera 5 is quite easy. If we have already Puppet 4. something, we just need to upgrade to a version like Puppet 4.9 or later, and nothing happens by default. But we can start to use modules which feature that module, and we can start to move, typically, our Hiera YAML, which was previously configured in the, let's say, global layer, so in etc, puppet apps, puppet, hiera.yaml. This file can be upgraded to version 5 syntax and then moved inside the environment. At the same time, we should also replace the global Hiera YAML with a sort of fake one, eventually with a single layer of hierarchy which defines some kind of global setting which overrides all the settings found in the hierarchies of the environment or the module. For more information about how to migrate from Hiera.3 to Hiera version 5, here is another blog post from example42 site. So, conclusion. First of all, how and where we place our data by using Hiera 5 with these 3 different layers of and places where we can place data. As a rule of thumb, I would say in your component modules, the ones you share on Puppet Forge or on GitHub, it makes sense to place only data which relates to operating systems. So the defaults to use for managing the application managed by the module under different operating systems. Inside the profile modules, which are somehow more local, more site-specific, I would say we can place some defaults which refer to our own infrastructure. But just the defaults, because the real configurations are supposed to be done inside the Hiera YAML and the relevant data of the control repo of our environment. It's there where we can have different logic according to the topology of our infrastructure, and so eventually provide different values for classes according to whatever is the logic we group and organize our nodes. Finally, in the global Hiera YAML, I will just place a single hierarchy level which points to a place where we can set values which override all the other values by default. Remember, default puppet lookup makes a first match lookup. If we set in global hierarchy level where we can place data which is found by puppet lookup, this data is returned even before the environment or the module data is looked at. So that's it. This was a quick introduction to data modules. I hope you enjoyed it, and good luck with Puppet, Hiera, data modules, live, and everything.